Board games used to be the perfect activity for all the family, until we realized that some of them were actually pretty offensive. Stay tuned until the end to see one of the worst games of Monopoly. If you love board games as much as we do, don't forget to subscribe and please give this video a big thumbs up. Today, we are showing you 10 board games that weren't for kids. What Shall I Be? In 1966, young girls dreamed that they could grow up to be more than just housewives. This is why this educational game showed them suitable career options for young women. They had the chance to become a teacher, a nurse, an airline hostess, an actress, a ballet dancer, or a model. And that's it. Compared to this, the male version of this game gave young boys the chance to become lawyers or astronauts. Their goal was to become the #1 girl in one of these jobs by collecting 4 school cards of one profession. While some girls can actually be interested in this kind of job, they had to learn that they might not be able to do it. That's because they needed to have the proper personality for each of the prospective careers. For example, if they got too excited, it was bad for airline hostess and nurse. But if they had a nice hairstyle, it was good if they wanted to become an airline hostess, an actress, or a model. Being overweight was bad for 50% of the career choices, as they had less chance to become an airline hostess, a ballet dancer, or a model. Fortunately, in 1976, the game was updated, and young girls had more opportunities like going to medical school and law school. When we think that this game could have had an influence on the future of little girls, it was certainly not meant for kids. The sinking of the Titanic. These people decided to turn a tragedy into a game, and people are not laughing. While it was nice to see the movie Titanic, we shouldn't forget that it was a drama and not a comedy. This was not all fun and games. Some people didn't understand that when they encouraged families to play this game. The Titanic was sinking, and players had to race around to rescue passengers from their staterooms and rush the lifeboats before the ship sinks. Then, after the ship sank, they had to get enough food and water by visiting islands and drawing cards to stay alive while they waited for the rescue boat to appear. The first ones to make it won the game, while all the other passengers were lost. There is only one player who could save their passengers. People were offended by this not only because they turned the tragedy into something fun, but also because they rewrote the story. There was no island anywhere nearby when the Titanic sank, and it was a dumb idea to change the story just to make things more entertaining. While the whole game was not a total failure, the problem was that they associated it with something that really happened. Changing the name for the name of a boat that never existed would have made the game less offensive. Public assistance. It's never fun to have to ask for government welfare payouts, and this is why it should never be turned into a game. While some people really do need this kind of help, it is insulting to see a game portraying them as people who just want to take advantage of the system. Just so you can clearly understand why this game was offensive, the tagline was, "Why bother working for a living?" While playing this game, people could move around the board in 2 different tracks. They could go on the working person's rut or the able-bodied welfare recipient's promenade. The spaces on the board contained instructions on how much money to receive or pay out, and they could also collect welfare benefit and working person's burden cards. The 2 kinds of players both had either paydays or government welfare payouts, and the goal was to see who had the most money after taxes. This game portrayed people who need public assistance as lazy people who just want to get the money you worked hard for. This is why it was banned in the 80s and always known as politically incorrect. We should never encourage this kind of prejudice, and this is why kids shouldn't be allowed to play this game. It looks like the game makers didn't think too hard either when they were working on this board game. Gay Monopoly. This game came just in time for the decade's new gay right movements. This board game looked just like any other game of Monopoly, but with a little gay twist. The original playing tokens were replaced by other tokens that were supposed to be gay-themed, like one stiletto heel, a leather cap, handcuffs, a jeep, a blow dryer, and a teddy bear. In the original game, people could buy houses and hotels, but this time they could buy bars and bathhouses, as if the LGBT community was only interested in that. Another thing that was new with this game was the family pride cards. Each card described an important gay man, and the players had to identify him to move to any space on the board. Then there was the camp cards that encouraged you to do something stereotypically gay, like yelling the word fabulous or striking a pose. There is still a debate on whether this game was really offensive or not. Some people might think that it portrayed gay people in a stereotypical way, while other members of the LGBT community just decided to embrace it and laugh out loud while playing this game. No matter what, Gay Monopoly should never be taken too seriously. Anyway, you probably won't see this game anymore because Parker Brothers, who owns the actual Monopoly game, shut them down with a copyright lawsuit. blacks and whites. We don't know if this board game was trying to teach us a lesson or if it was simply incredibly offensive. According to the publisher, Blacks and Whites was meant to depict housing discrimination through the absurdities of living in different worlds while playing on the same board. At the beginning of the game, players could either choose to be black or white. And we are not only talking about a game of chess. They had to choose if they wanted to be black or white people. Those with white skin started the game with $1 million and had the chance to buy a property anywhere on the board. But if you were black, you started the game with only $10,000 and couldn't buy many properties. They could live in the inner ghetto, the outer ghetto, the lower integrated neighborhoods, the upper integrated neighborhoods, the newer estates, and the older estates. As you can guess, not a lot of people chose to be black, and most of them lived in ghettos. There were also cards that could make players gain or lose money. And as you can guess, the whites were gaining money and the blacks were losing money, just because some people are luckier than others. While it was meant to teach people a lesson, discrimination against race should never be a game. Just try to talk to your kids instead. Out with the Jews. During World War II, Nazis went as far as creating games to encourage young kids to hate Jews. That was not the only game, but this one was so offensive that Nazis themselves criticized the game. This is why it became the most notorious board game of the war, as it represented the terrible way people used to think at that time. This game was published before the war in 1938, hoping that it could indoctrinate kids to support Adolf Hitler. Out with the Jews, or Judenraus, was a sort of amalgam of Monopoly and Alma. In this game, you just had to roll your dice to move your token to Jewish houses and collect Jews. They were represented by little pawns wearing pointed medieval Jewish hats. Then you had to escort the Jews to a collection point by rolling the dice once again. The player who was the first to expel 6 Jews won the game. Obviously, the designer of this game probably regrets ever thinking about this nowadays, just like parents who let their kids play with this game. But this is also a lesson to be learned, as we hope that something similar won't happen ever again. You can now see a copy of Out with the Jews on display at a Holocaust museum in London, but that's the only place where we want to see it. Beat the border. This game didn't only encourage kids to become criminal, it was also totally racist. That's because the goal was not to simply cross the border. It was not about illegal immigration, even though we could imagine that one president would like to play this game. It was about smuggling illegal substances and selling them. They never actually said what it was, but the goal was to still make money buying and selling what they used to call kilos. And as it is difficult to cross the border with them, we can imagine that they are not selling pencils. But actually, they could be selling Kinder Surprise, as this candy is illegal in the United States. Anyway, players started the game with $1,000 and then had to cross the border to buy kilos from various sources. What makes this game racist was that these sources all had Mexican names, like Eduardo, Ronaldo, or Jose. Then you had to try to cross the border and sell the kilos in US cities like Tucson and New York. You could be busted by various US government agencies if you carried kilos, and could even buy some things that would help you out, like lawyers or fake IDs. This game was clearly turning kids into racist criminals, and we can't believe that some parents ever encouraged that. This game shouldn't cross the border. It shouldn't even cross someone's mind. Darkies on the Melon Patch. Just by looking at the title, you know that there is no way this game can turn out to be right. In case you don't know about this, associating black people with watermelons is considered to be really offensive nowadays. That's because when slaves won their emancipation during the Civil War, they started growing, eating, and selling watermelons. This is how the fruit became a symbol of their freedom. But as revenge, some white people turned it into a symbol of laziness, childishness, and unwanted public presence. This is why turning it into a game was simply racist. People played the role of black men who tried to escape a patch of melons. There were also angry farmers and grandmothers who acted as threats. There were also some distractions like seed spitting contests and melon races. To win, you had to reach the end space first by rolling a die and avoiding pitfall spaces. Once again, some white people took the symbol of the watermelon and turned it into something terrible. We can't believe that there was a time when people actually believed that it was a fun game to play. But one thing is sure, no kid should ever be allowed near it nowadays. This game was so terrible that it even inspired many modern counterfeits. But no matter what, you can burn any version of this game. Parental supervision is advised. 5 Little N-Word Boys. Just when we thought that things couldn't get worse, people decided to put the N-word in the title of a game. There is no way anything could go right with this game. The only moment when anyone can say the N-word is to say that you should never say the N-word. And we don't even dare to say it now. This is why we can't believe that one of the most offensive racial slurs was part of the title of a product that was marketed. Just to make things worse, it was a target shooting game. The game included 5 pieces that looked like little black children and a pop gun rifle that fired corks. forks. The goal was to shoot down the 5 little children. The winner was the player who managed to shoot down a predetermined number of pieces. Having a heart as cold as ice was a must to win in this situation. We shouldn't even shoot criminals unless we are in great danger, let alone poor innocent children. And just when you thought that it couldn't be more offensive, this game also included a man eating a watermelon. We think that we don't have to explain why no kid should ever know that this game exists. The only N-word anyone should have used while marking this game was the word no. No, don't ever think about turning this into a game. Ghettopoly. While you might think that people were really different in the past, this game was actually created in 2003. Ghettopoly looks like Monopoly, except for the fact that you buy stolen properties and get points or lose money in many inappropriate ways. For example, you can sell soap to stupid high school students who think it's illegal substances and gain points. You can also lose money for having to post bail. Some of the things you can be involved in if you draw a card included being arrested for trying to smuggle 4 kilos of illegal substances across the Mexican border, or meeting a rapper at Weinstein's. You could also go to Cheap Tricks Avenue if you felt horny, own a crack house, or get carjacked. Just to make things clear that going to school isn't cool in the ghetto, the game was also full of grammar mistakes. If you want to take things even further, you can also buy Redneckopoly. Fortunately, these games are really hard to find, so we hope that no one will ever play that game. But just realizing that someone once thought about it makes us lose faith in humanity. What do you think was the worst game on this list? Don't be shy to answer in the comments section down below. We love to hear what you think. And that's it for 10 board games that weren't for kids. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and please give us a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching and see you next time.